Welcome to this panel session. I just want to mention again that in the history of spaceflight, we've had 12 space stations constructed. There are 2 active ones right now with 6 people on board, 3 Chinese on board the Tiangong space station, an American and 2 Russians on board the International Space Station. And as Mike mentioned in his introduction, we've had people continuously on board the International Space Station for a quarter of a century, 25 years of working together, getting along without major mishap and no big conflict. Maybe we can learn a lesson from that. But now on to the new stations.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Is this on? Hello.
We need to have our mic with 2 of us.
Yeah. So we're about to begin this discussion, but before we begin, for full disclosure, I feel it's important in the interest of transparency to tell you that I'm currently actually an advisor at VAST. And prior to that, I had a contract to work with Axiom, as Mike knows. So I'm a little bit biased, but I'm going to work really hard to be objective.
I'm heading out.
It's okay. I can be objective. You know, this is very serious. There's billions of dollars at stake. This is a competition. NASA will choose 1, hopefully 2, of these companies to provide the successor to the ISS. So it's important that, for me personally, as moderator of the panel, I remain completely objective. So I'd like to start by asking Mike and Tom from Axiom and from VAST to tell us why, if NASA chooses this Voyager Star Lab, it would be such a horrible mistake. I'm just kidding. No,
I'm glad you're kidding.
Don't actually. The first question will be, who are you targeting for clients when you're looking for the crews that will fly up to your space stations? There are different options. We've mentioned sovereign astronauts from countries. We've talked about high net worth individuals, private astronauts. And then, of course, there's the NASA customer as well. So as you look to all these different possible clients, who are you prioritizing?
I think the answer is all of the above. I mean, what we know is that NASA and the other agencies do not want to be the anchor tenant, or they don't want to be the only tenant, I should say. Even though they want to be able to buy the service from us and send their astronauts there, we're talking something on the order, at least on the NASA side, of 2 crew people per year, so far short of what the ISS is today. But to be honest, for this to be successful, we have to go far beyond the typical government customers. We want to invite research partners. We want to invite manufacturers to do things in space to produce goods and services, as I said before, that can be used either in space or brought back down to Earth. So I think the sky's the limit. It's clear that we have to, from a medical standpoint, open the aperture to allow astronauts that today would not be qualified to go to the ISS for this or that reason. But we want to make it an experience that can be had by people from much greater walks of life, different countries, as I said, individuals, companies, research institutions, people who want to build something in space. Sky's the limit.
I think Mike has said it really well, and I think we're all 3 teams looking at pretty much the same market. The only thing I would add is that at Starlab, especially in the beginning, we are not interested in what is called the tourist market or the non-professional market. We are not as interested in that. We're focusing Starlab, the research facilities, and everything we're investing in to finally realize the dream of space agencies and space supporters to have significant breakthroughs in applications for here on the Earth and in space. So we're not looking after the tourist market.
I just want to sort of add a different layer and perspective on this, because yes, we are looking, I think, fundamentally at the same markets, at governments, at private individuals, and then commercial activity. But if you look over the 20 years of the ISS to date, certainly in the early years, astronauts who were flying were not necessarily focused on the research. That was not the priority. A lot of it was just demonstrating the capability, and I think a huge amount of time was spent just on building and maintaining the station, as opposed to the work that was actually done. And that's slowly changed over the lifetime of the ISS. And there's a lot more focus now on the research and the potential commercial application of that research. And I think we're all now looking at what the market is telling us that they want to do. But we should also look at what does it mean to be an astronaut and who are the right people to actually go and fly and conduct the work in space. And this is my reflection, I will say this, that an astronaut can be trained to conduct bioresearch in space. But is it actually better to train an astronaut to conduct that research or to fly a researcher? Which is going to deliver the better ROI? And I think ultimately that's up to the market to determine what is best in the long term, but I think it's an important distinction to look at. That, no offense to the 3 astronauts on the panel, of course I'm saying this, but the astronaut of the future may be very different and flying for a very different purpose.
That begs the question, from this answer I just heard from all 3 of you, is what is going to be your operating model? I mean, right now, when I take an airplane, even if I'm a passenger out there, I have people, flight crew, that take care of this machine that I'm riding on. So what will be the operating model in your space station, and what is going to be the training? Is the training going to be the same for everybody, or will it be different?
I would say in the immediate term, it's going to be very, very similar. But we don't know how it's going to change. We need to learn. From the outset, the training is comprised functionally 2 different sections. There's one portion of the training for the time that you're on the SpaceX spacecraft that transports you to the space station, and then the other half of the training is really focused on the space station and how you maintain yourself and the space station during your time there, and what exactly it is you're going to be doing. And I think we will only, in the early days, our preference is to fly at least with one experienced crew member on board to help guide the crews. But as we learn the system, it may well be that we don't have to fly experienced astronauts on every single mission.
Jeff?
Let me just tie that together. I think I want to pull on something Tom said before. And by the way, there's no animosity here. We're all friends. We call ourselves competimates. Seriously, we are all very interested in success of the commercial LEO destinations program, and I think we have very much in common. And one of those things is that any space station of the future, I think we all want to have it be a lot more autonomous than the ISS is today. There is literally an army of people that is on console every day, 24/7, and that costs money. That's okay if you're the government, but it's not okay if you're a commercial company. And along with that automation, I think what Tom was pulling on is we probably don't need every astronaut to be able to do everything. Today, if you want to fly to the ISS, you have to be qualified in robotics, in spacewalking, and on top of all the operations and maintenance and experiments that you're supposed to do. It's time that we step away from that model and we allow more specialization. A little bit like we had in the shuttle days when we had payload specialists who were trained only to go execute whatever experiments in their particular field that they were expert at. So I think that we will definitely walk away from the model where everybody has to be able to do everything. I think your question, Julie, is interesting about whether or not we can have, or what the composition would look like. I'm living this, we the company Axiom are living this through AX1 through 4, which is that we have a company astronaut as a commander of the mission. That is a seat that is very valuable. And would we like to sell that seat to somebody eventually? Absolutely. I do think, like Tom said, that we probably want to start out with a company astronaut on every mission to be responsible to manage the systems, to let the experts, the specialists do the work in their particular field. But maybe we get comfortable with the notion that someday we can have customers being the commander of the space station and acting on our behalf.
Allow me to add one other sort of slant on it. And we've all gone through the experience. I think Axiom and Voyager, more than VAST at this point, have gone through the experience of what's the polite word, debating with NASA as to the right way to go down a particular pathway, or what is necessary versus what is redundant. But I do want to put a very Washingtonian slant here for a moment and say we now have a NASA administrator who's been to space in a commercial setting, commercial way, and I think we're going to see acceleration of some of these commercial efficiencies when we walk in to NASA in the coming months and year and say, here's something we can do. You're talking to a NASA administrator who flew commercially to space, understands it, has experienced the current NASA safety regulations, current NASA procedures, and so I think it will give more opportunity for those of us in the commercial sector designing space stations, looking at logistics, to enter the new era that we believe, all of us believe, is possible quicker than if it had been an aerospace executive.
Okay, actually, that's interesting. So picking up on that, Jared Isaacman, the new NASA administrator that you spoke of, has spoken a lot lately about unlocking the LEO economy. And several of you mentioned and had some very nice photos on the screen showing all the different possible commercial applications and research that could be done. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any of you would assert that there's enough revenue coming today from commercial space research that would be near enough to support the construction of your space stations. Okay. So my question is, in the future, I know you hope to generate a lot more. What is the key area, the key industry you think that will allow that to happen? What is the key breakthrough that will unlock that revenue stream?
A couple of things. First off, many years ago, I led an effort, Dutch effort, to lease the Russian space station Mir Corp in the year 2000, and we had a very good backlog. We had research, and this is the year 2000, and political issues, economic, it was forced down. But I do want to say that our revenue was greater at Mir Corp than it ever was at NanoRacks. And why is that? Because, I mean, you say, and I would say it too, that commercial, we have not had that applications. I would maintain that one of the reasons is not the market, but the market experience of working with the NASA we have today. So that's one answer quickly to your question. Second is, none of us are going to share with you what we think the breakthroughs are. But the third thing that I will say, just speaking on behalf here, but the third thing that I would say quickly is it has been stated publicly that our shareholder Mitsubishi Corporation, for example, is involved in Starlab because they believe that semiconductor research in microgravity is a promising pick the billion U.S. market, and they are devoting cash to Starlab and internally in Mitsubishi to expand semiconductor research. And so that's one sign that's been announced publicly of what the market's telling us.
So we're already running out of time. Can you believe that? This is a very fascinating topic. This is the future. So I'll ask you a difficult question, because I'll ask you to choose between three things, because there are people probably here in this room that are thinking about, what about me? Can I go to those stations one day? They're commercial. Can I buy a ticket, or can I go as a tourist? So would you say your space station is a destination, or is it a test bed, a laboratory mostly, or is it a staging ground for the future, even beyond?
I think all of the above. I think the answer to the question, whether people in the audience could go to the space station someday, probably not space stations that you've seen images of here. But, I look back 100 years to the dawn of commercial aviation, and at the time, only very wealthy people could fly in an airplane. Today, I would ask to see a show of hands, but I can't see them. How many people have not been on an airplane? It's probably pretty low. And so is that going to happen in the same time span? Probably not, but I do believe that in the future it will become more and more accessible. And we do have to have destinations there. So, you know, we're laying the groundwork, and it's all going to take time, but this is a wonderful thing about evolution, is that it will happen.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about the sort of semantics of what you call it, but fundamentally it is a means of access to the microgravity environment. And so therefore it becomes, or a space station has to adapt to the conditions of users. And so it is key, and I think I've said this before and I'll stress it again, that we have to listen to the potential users, and we have to listen to our customers to make sure that we are designing a space station and an environment that is useful for them in the long term and that meets their needs. And there are some technical hurdles that means we can't do that as quickly as maybe they would like, but it's we've got to keep on pushing forward and trying to adapt and evolve and develop the station ultimately with the users in mind.
And on my part, I've stubbornly clung to the belief that space is a normal place to do business, and it can be once we free ourselves from the government regulations, the culture that has existed since the dawn of the space age. I do not want to see us have a new generation of space stations that get snared or trapped in the political rivalries of the Earth. And so I do believe, I am optimistic. Someone said earlier optimistic but pragmatic. I am a pragmatic optimist that we will unleash new markets and we will look back as to the ISS and say, what a great beginning, and look at all we've accomplished commercially. I do believe that.
Okay, if I'm reading this right, I think we're almost out of time, but I think I'd like to lean a little more into the competition aspect, just because it's very entertaining.
I want to know which one is going to go up there first. You can't ask that question, but I
can't ask that question. Maybe you can answer that, but also the question, I wanted to give you each a chance just to say like one or two sentences, no more, just your elevator pitch on why your vehicle platform, why your platform is the one NASA should choose to replace the ISS.
Yeah, and to hit on the themes that I've talked about before, because we're moving quickly. There's an important transition coming up. The ISS has a defined lifespan at the minute of 2030. VAST will be ready to provide a destination for NASA or any other government agency if we are able to meet our currently published schedule of Q1 of 2027. And we have a very clear plan as to how we can iterate on the Haven 1 space station to turn it into a much more capable platform of Haven 2 in a very short period of time.
First, let me say again, as I did in my talk, that how excited I am that we're entering an era of private space stations. Having said that, our competitive advantages are single launch, and we're fully operational, more than 7 meters in diameter, a team that's proven. We've raised capital to an extraordinary degree. Our heritage with Nanoracks, Airbus, Mitsubishi shows we're space ready.
Look, I think I would rely on the fact that we are the company that's been at this for the longest. We have the confidence of NASA as demonstrated by them allowing us to attach our module to the space station. We have a lot of legacy expertise that came from NASA, and I'll be quick to point out that that's good. Also not good, because there's a lot of what Jeff, I think, was alluding to, a lot of lethargy and inability to innovate, but we are a very commercially oriented company. And I think that we will have, our modules will be demonstrating interoperability with the ISS and its ongoing research by taking some of its very old but also very heavy equipment from the ISS to our station. And I do believe that we will ultimately win the CLD.
Well, let's hope that SpaceX will live long and prosper, because all three of you are counting on that company to bring the crew up and down.
Indeed.
Well, everybody stay tuned, because it's possible before this year is over that we will find out which one of these companies is going on to the next stage of whatever this TV show is called.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your participation.
Much.